welcome to Awash with Colour on Peatlands Park at Derry-Hubbard, County Armagh. This beautiful parkland and nature reserve is an ideal place for quiet recreation and painting. So later I'll be taking a special guest down to the bog to do a little bit of watercolour painting. But for now, I'm off to gain an insight into the background and natural history of this area.
The peat here has been forming for about 10,000 years, and it represents an important habitat that is becoming increasingly threatened. Peatlands are the last home for many of our unusual and interesting plant and insect species. Plants like sphagnum moss, sundew, asphodel, crossland heath, pitch's plant, bog cotton and heather.
In the late 17th century, Peatlands Park was acquired by the Werner family and became part of their Churchill estate. The land remained in their ownership until the beginning of this century.
For most of that period, the park was relatively unused, except for hunting, shooting and small-scale turf cutting on some of the bog margins. From 1901, the land was acquired by the Irish Peat Development Company, who carried out a commercial turf cutting operation on the bog areas.
To facilitate peat extraction, the Irish Peat Development Company installed almost 16 kilometres of this narrow gauge railway.
In the early days, the trucks were pulled by workmen. Then in 1907, the system was electrified. This lasted up to the 1950s when 2 diesel locomotives took over. Today the system has been reconstructed and can be used by visitors. Down the road from Peatlands Park, commercial harvesting of turf is still taking place. It is mainly excavated to make moss peat and potting compost for gardening.
Apart from the peat, this area is well known for its fishing. And why wouldn't it be? Behind me is Lough Neagh, the largest freshwater lake in Britain and Ireland.
In fact, Lough Neagh is so large, it's more like an inland sea. It covers an area of 148 square miles and is 95 feet at its deepest point. It holds 769 million gallons of water, which is the equivalent to 7 million swimming pools. The loch supports a wealth of fish and wildlife. Not too far from the shores of Lough Neagh is a little place called Arboe. I'm on my way to meet a local artist who has been living and working here for over 10 years. Diane McCormick creates ceramic masterpieces.
Well, a lot of it would be natural forms, and I like a lot of things with textures on them. It doesn't have to be like anything in particular. You know, you could look at a seed pod and say that's a nice texture on that, and maybe say look at a building and say I like the shape of the dome on that. But it's trying to, you know, amalgamate different influences and different textures and to make something that's your own, I suppose. If you make something for yourself and you make it that you really like it, then you know there's other people there will appreciate it as well. I've made things in the past that have been sort of to other people's ideas, and they don't really, to me, they don't really work as well, you know, as making something that you think, well, I would like that in my house. You can plan to a certain degree and make the moulds and do all the plaster carving, but It's only till you actually sit down and put the clay into the mould and play about with the clay that you can come up with new ideas, and you can't write that down. I can't anyway. I almost have to have the piece of clay in my hand and think, oh, that's an interesting shape.
Is there an Eastern influence in the work you do?
Well, I suppose you could say there was. The glazes I use originated in Persia, although they used to use a wood fire kiln to get the lustres on them. And some of the shapes and of the mirrors and the domed pieces, they would be they're taken from minarets and towers and sort of archways from Eastern architecture. It really just starts with a bag of clay. I don't throw, I would hand build, and basically that means you roll out into slabs, different thicknesses. I spend a lot of time carving plaster moulds, so that I would translate my textures that I like onto plaster moulds and plaster rollers. And then I would build up the shapes, and then after the pieces have dried a wee bit, I join them together using a clay slip, and then they have to dry, usually for a week or more than a week. You dry them slowly, stop them cracking. Then once they've dried sufficiently, they're biscuit fired to about 1100 degrees centigrade. I have 6 different glazes for dipping in. You can see there's a blue, bright blue, 3 greens and a matte one. I like the matte glaze, it's not so shiny, and it can give you if it works well, it can give you like a reddish pinky colour, very deep colour that you can't get any other way in ceramics. You can't, you can buy commercial colours, but they don't give you that same sort of iridescence. They just give you that very bright gold that you often see around plates and the rims of plates. And then they're fired to the glaze temperature, which is about 1060 degrees centigrade. And then they're given a 3rd firing, which brings out the lustre. So, and it's a fairly awkward firing, that last firing, because you could get it wrong and either end up with too much lustre, it's too grey, or no lustre at all. You're trying to get those, the midway point, the nice pinks and purples, and the underlying colour coming through as well as the surface lustre.
This is Donaghmore, where St Patrick is said to have founded a religious establishment in the 5th century, and to have given the village its name, Donaghmore, meaning foundation. The High Cross is actually 20 feet tall and dates from the 9th century. It's one of Ulster's finest early Christian monuments, and has been recreated as a souvenir made from peat. Brian McGurr of Island Turf Crafts has captured the very essence of the Celtic era by creating a unique range of kiln-fired peat ornaments.
The turf I would need to be using here would be a deeper down turf. It would be black, real hard black, whereas the top layers now, some of the local areas here could be a wee bit softer. It's real black heavy stuff now, but it's very hard and easy to work with.